A very good afternoon, everybody. Today we have the live session on the introductory presentation by semester two students. A group of students are making a presentation on selected poems by W.B. Yeats as a part of their study of modernist literature. They are introducing the poem. Uh, why means? Acha, they are not there. You have to change that. Yeah. The banner is of the only story by Julian Barnes, so it should be changed there. The background image that is given in the StreamYard in the class that you'll have to change. Yes, so that the presenter is sitting on this desktop. There, I think by mistake, the another image has been selected, so that you can replace or you can remove the image in case if you don't have the another image that can be removed also. Yeah. Or you can see if you are changing, you can do that. Change the image, then we will start our presentation.
થઈ જશે.
Yes, that is the image. Yeah. We had, I think, yesterday semester 4 students presentation on the only story. So that banner was selected by mistake. Okay, now it is there. Okay, W.B. Yeats's poems. Okay. Yeah, okay, fine. So, as a part of our study of modernist literature, the students are assigned the task to make an introductory presentation of the units. Today, we have W.B. Yeats and a few selected poems by him. The group of students who are going to make presentation are Sejad Chokia, Divya Dabhi, Bhargavi Barad, and Shivani Degda. These 4 students are going to introduce us to W. Yeats's poems. So I request them to start with the presentation.
Chokia, Divya Dabhi, Bhargavi Bharat, and Shivani Degda. Okay, let's start with the introduction of W.B. Yeats. And for the introduction of W.B. Yeats and around the overview of the author, I would like to invite Bhargavi Bharat.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Bhargavi Barad, and today our group presenting on W.B. Yeats' poetry in introductory overview. Poetry is not just a beauty of words; it's also reflect of war, emotions, and history, spirit of an age. So let's start with author introductions. William Butler Yeats was Irish poet and dramatist, and he was also leader of Irish literary revival. He was influenced in modern English literature. He was helped establish of Abbey Theatre in Dublin, which became center of Irish drama. He was turned into romanticism to modernism. Early, he was right about imaginations, beauty, and love, and later he was right begin of war, reality, and harsh reality of world. William Butler Yeats is the most influential poet of 20th century. His literary career of span his transition from romanticism to modernism because he is early writing of romance, imaginations, and beauty, but he was later write in harsh reality, war, and transformations, especially in Ireland and Europe. His poetry reflects to deep concern with history, spirituality, violence, and future of civilizations. Rather than offering simple answer, Yeats use poetry of question, power, morality, and human responsibility. He combined with myth and symbolism, personal experience, and historical vision of express and the anxiety of modern world. Yeats was awarded Nobel Prize because his had him a great contribution in literature. 1923, recognizing his lasting contributions of modern poetry. Yeats and his historical background of poetry. Yeats, during a time of great historical upheaval, Europe witnessed World War One, political violence and social instability, harsh reality of world. Ireland was marked by nationalist movements and civil conflict. Tradition, belief in progress, religious and moral order were weakening. This atmosphere of crisis deeply shaped in Yeats' poetic vision. Yeats, as a modern poet, write about his poetry reflect disillusionment, fear of chaos, loss of moral center, and he was right about how people loss of moral value in life and war. He used symbolism, myth, prophecy rather than direct realism. Yeats does not offer solution. He presents visions of questions and continue question to people. This make him key voice of modernist poetry. Yeats' poetry reflects the changing world and of 19th century to 20th century. His early poem romantic, mystical, symbolic, and influenced by Irish legend of folktale. Later poem become darker, realistic, and modern, responding to war and social crisis. Yeats often write about history and time, war and violence, spiritual and moral uncertainty. His poem combine personal experience with universal human concern. So he was right about universal theme, not personal experience. So further information, I would like to invite Divya Dabhi.
So today we will be discussing WB It's two poem, The Second Coming and On Being Asked for a War poem. And I will discuss on Being Asked for a War poem by WB It's. So let's start with On Being Asked for a War poem with the text and its meaning. I think it better than that in times like this. A poet's mouth be silent, for in truth we have no gift to set a statesman right. In this line, Yeats believed that a poet cannot correct political leaders. The poet should not pretend to have authority in political matters. Silence here is not weakness or cowardice, but ethical honesty. The next line shows role of the poet. He has had enough of meddling who can please a young girl in the indolence of her youth or an old man upon a winter's night. In this line, it defines the poet's role as the bringing quiet human pleasure or emotional manipulation or not propaganda. Poetry belongs to private life and emotional experience, not war politics. The poet's power lies in comfort and reflection, not persuasions. Modern evolution of the poem. In the modern world, writers are often expected to take a political side, yet poem rise an important question: should art serve politics or remain independent? His refusal changes war propaganda, forced patriotism, and misuse of the art for power. Today, the poem is relevant in times of war, media pressure, and social and political polarization. Why the poem still matters today, or resist the uh, resist turning poetry into propaganda, protects the moral autonomy of art, encourages ethical reflection rather than emotional manipulation, shows that not speaking can also be a powerful response. Here we also did a case study that where we confused about the poet's silence, or where we felt difficult to understand the line, I think it better than that in times like this the poet's mouth be silent. At first reading, the poet's silence seems like escape or indifference. Students may feel yet is avoiding responsibility. Here is a question that is the silence a weakness or a moral choice? Here silence is not uh, cowardice, but an ethical refusal, not indifference, yet rejects the propaganda and false authority. The second meaning of we have no gift to set a statesman right. Here, difficulties students may expect poets to be moral guides or reformers. The line seems to reduce the importance of poetry. Your question rises that why does Yeats deny poetry's power? Yet is rejecting the romantic idea of the poet as a political leader. He separates artistic truth from political power. That's it from my side. Now, further information, I would like to invite Shivani Digda.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Shivani Degda. So, the second coming is written during January 99 and published in November 1920. So, this poem is it has a free verse, and let's start. The second coming, text and central vision. It starts with turning and turning in the widening jar. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. So the falcon bird is flying in the sky, but the problem is it cannot hear the falconer, and it flying in the way of uh, in a round circle. Uh, Things fall apart. It cannot obey the falconer. The center cannot hold. It's present a world that has lost control and direction. The falcon symbolize humanity. The falconer symbolize authority, order, or moral center. Civilization is no longer guided by its traditional value. Uh, Next, anarchy is loose upon the world. The blood deemed tide is loose, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drawn. War and violence dominate the world, and innocence and moral purity are destroyed. This line reflects the aftermath of World War One and widespread suffering, moral crisis of the modern world. The best lack all conviction, while the rows are full of passionate intensity. In this line, poet try to explain that the good people are silent, confused, or hesitant. On the other hand, violent and destructive forces act with confidence. So that's why it criticizes a moral weakness and aggressive extremism. The vision of rough beast. So after that, in stanza 2, poet says that surely some revelation is at hand. Surely some revelation is at hand means a birth is coming. Surely the second coming is at hand. Uh, uh, it represents the biblical return of the Christ, but the repetition of the word surely represents something else, which is against humanity. So we can connect it with the sloka of Bhagavad Gita, where Bhagwan Sri Krishna say, "Yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhavati bharatam tadatmanam srujamyah paritranaయ साधुनाय विनाशाय च दुष्कृताम Sambhavani Yuge Yuge. So in this shloka, Sri Krishna says that whenever religion destroyed, whenever the power comes on the hand of evil one, so the great change will happen. But in this poem, it's represent in a different way. The beast is kindly different from the Krishna. Krishna is come to uh, establish morality, but the beast creature is different from the Lord Krishna. And and the vision of the rough beast, a shape with lion body. So the beast has the shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun. So we can compare this line with the old Glucon-D advertisement where the sun gazing throughout the burn throughout the day, and the straw soak the immunity and stamina of the child. So we can visualize it in better way. Is moving slow thighs. Okay, so it's move with the slow thighs. The beast symbolize a new terrifying age, and instead of Christ's return, a monster force approaches. The future promises violence, not salvation. Uh, and next, real shadows of the indignant desert birds, the darkness drops again. So while the creature moves through the thighs, it disturbs the birds which are flying in the sky. So the shadow of the birds reflect in the desert, and that's why the darkness drops again. But now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep, which means 2000 years of Christianity, were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. So disturbed by the rocking cradle, and what rough beast its are come round at last. So a rough beast is a scary, and it symbolizes the new edge of darkness. On the other hand, slouch towards Bethlehem to be born. So slouch means to move with towards the Bethlehem to be born. Bethlehem is the birthplace of Jesus. So this rough beast is moved slowly and suddenly, but with the impactful, powerful, great purpose. So now the time is over. The 2000 years of Christianity is now over. A new power is coming on the way. So modern evolution of the poem. The poem reflects war, political collapse, moral confusion. In the modern world, the poem feels relevant during pandemics, wars, social breakdown. It's show that progress does not guarantee moral improvement. The poem warns that history may repeat itself in violent cycles. So, understanding the gyre, turning and turning in the widening gyre. So, we face difficulty like students are unfamiliar with the Yeats cyclical theory of history. So, challenge is what does the gyre actually represent? So we can better understand that the gyre symbolize historical cycle when one era ends and another begins violently. So now about confusion about the rough beast, a shape with lion body and the head of a man. We can compare it with the Narsim avatar, where it has also half man and half lion. So, but in that case, we can see that the Narsim Bhagwan is want to establish the dharma, but in this beast we can see the violence and effect of post-humanism. So we face the difficulty. Students are trying to identify the beast as a specific person or event. So interpretative challenge is the beast Hitler or war or pandemic or evil. So understanding develop is the beast is a symbolic, not a literal. It represents a brutal new historical phase. So now I would like to invite Sejat for further information. Thank you.
Thank you, Shivani, Bhargavi, and Divya for providing the background. Okay, now let's connect both the poems, which discussed by Divya Dapi and another which is discussed by Shivani Degra. Both poems are written against the background of war, violence, and historical crisis, and both are quite similar, but the structure and the narration is different. In On being asked for a war poem, Yeats chooses silence as an ethical response to war, while on the other hand, the poem questions whether poetry should serve political agendas or propaganda. But in the contrast, the second coming gives voice to a powerful prophetic vision of chaos and collapse. One poem speaks through restraint and refusal, while the other speaks through symbol and warning. Together, the poems show that poetry can respond to crisis in multiple ways, by withholding speech or by revealing uncomfortable truths. Yeats presents poetry not as action but as a moral awareness, and both this poem, The Second Coming and On Being Asked for a War poem, describe it, which shows the artificial craftsmanship of W.B. Yeats. Okay, now let's conclude the presentation. The poem of W. Yeats reflect the deep uncertainty and instability of the modern world. Writing during the times of war and social background, these poems question the ideas of progress, order, and moral authority. And also, in moral authority, we can connect the people's uh, downfall in the moral values. Yeats does not glorify war, nor does he offers easy solutions. Instead, he forces readers to think critically about history and responsibility, and Yeats' main concern that history repeat itself. The difficulty in interpreting these poems highlights a key features of modernist literature. Meaning is complex, symbolic, and often unsettling. Through silence in one poem and prophecy in the other, Yeats shows that poetry can both resist power and warn humanity. These poems remain relevant today because modern society continues to face violence, fear, moral confusion, and crisis, as we are as world today suffering from the war. But not it doesn't affect the major part of the area. It only affect that crucial area where war is happening. But the effect on the human values, human life, and on the human moral, it is seems clear that if today in today's case in Gaza and Palestine the war is happening, as is constant bombing by the Israel is happening, which concern the human values, which can be connect here. Okay, here are the references that we have used for to make this presentation, and now questions are welcome.
My question is that how does Yeats' use of cyclical time in his poetry relate to his views on history and civilization?
Okay, Relba, thank you for the question. The question is that how does Yeats' use of cyclical time in his poetry relate to his views on history and civilization? As Yeats' main concern that history is repeating itself in the context of war. His context was clear that birth, learning, defense, and the rebirth of something which happened, or at least which is happened in the past, as the repetition of the history, which shows his historical concern and idea of civilization with the use of cyclical time in his poetry.
So my question is, how does Yeats' poetry reflect the influence of Romanticism and modernism?
Okay, Kushi, thank you for the question. As we go through the early work of W.B. William Butler Yeats, his early poetry was influenced by Romanticism, the idea which shows the idea of enlightenment, nature, and all these things. But later on, when modernism, his most of the work, later work, most of the works are influenced with the modernity. He influenced by modernity after, which shows in his work, which reflect in his poetry of both romanticism and modernism.
My question is, how does Yeats balance personal emotion with universal significance in his poetry?
Okay, Mithil, thank you for the question. If we go through the both this poem on being asked and on war poetry and second coming, both has that personal touch of Yeats' life. Not only this poem, but most of the Yeats' work has the personal experienced and the touch of personal experience in his writing, which shows the connection of war and universal themes like war. And the circumstances of war and the breakdown of the moral values which concerned with the universal themes, which shows his balance with the personal emotion with universal significance in his poetry. Thank you so much, everyone. This is from our side.
Okay, good. Very well presented, all the presenters. You have covered the aspect of W. Yeats's life during that time, how an Irish poet is responding to the modernity of his day. First World War time, around which W.B. Yeats is writing. So both the poems deal with the sentiments in and around First World War. A good graphical presentation also was given, a kind of an infographic in one of the slides to represent the visual memory which is captured or the visual image which gets generated when we read the poem. I hope now the subsequent presentations by all the group members will also follow the same pattern of making an introductory presentation. For the coming 2 days, we won't have classes. Tomorrow, you all are going to have a visit at library, Barton Library, and you also are going to visit the media house, mass media committee and library committee. They have organized this visit, so we won't have direct classes tomorrow. 25th December is also a holiday. So on 26th, when we meet in the class, at that time we will take a final recap of both these poems. Till then, you will be given a task in Google Classroom to study both the poems. And with any questions that you have, you can be ready in the classroom for our discussion on this. And thereafter, on the next day, we will have introduction to another unit by group of the students. Okay? We end our class here. We are ending with the live stream also.